We've made a surprising amount of videos over the past few weeks talking about this player on the Philadelphia Flyers. But things are looking so bad, and they got even worse yesterday, that I think it's a fair assumption to make that some changes have to be on the horizon here. Right? This isn't coming from anybody in particular. There isn't an NHL insider that tweeted something out or whatever. This is just me stating what is clearly plain as day out there in the open. And it all boils down to Philadelphia Flyers first round pick back in 2017, Morgan Frost. Now, Frost is a guy that if you've been on this channel for a few years, you would have seen the videos we made about him back in like 2018. We've been talking about this guy for a while. And last year, Morgan Frost, as a then 23-year-old player, had 46 points in 81 games played for Philly. A big breakout season for the small-ish 5'11 playmaker, center, and a guy who was definitely one of the more talented offensive players on this team. The thing is, though, this previous offseason, there was an entire holdup with the contract situation. He was an RFA, he needed an extension. It was a dragged out and difficult kind of deal. He eventually got signed to a $2.1 million contract, and it goes on till 24-25, and in this season's worth of play, the guy's numbers have absolutely tanked. He literally has 0 points in 6 games played. And things got even worse yesterday when the Philadelphia Flyers and John Tortorella decided to take Frost out of the lineup. This team in Philly has been on a little bit of a slump as of late. They started the year off pretty well. Wins against Vancouver, they looked pretty solid. We were all saying, hey, this is probably not going to last a really long time. I mean, they've got off to a hot start, really hot start, but how long do they keep this up? Well, it's now the start of November, and they started to string together a few losses. Yesterday, they played the San Jose Sharks, the worst team in the NHL, one of the worst teams we have seen in the NHL's history books, and a team that had yet to secure their first NHL victory, and John Tortorella takes Frost out of the lineup. You don't need me to tell you what happened next. The Flyers played the Sharks, and the Sharks ended up winning 2-1. So literally the first win on the season is a 2-1 victory. You have 2 goals scored by Duclair and Eklund. Good on Eklund for getting some points in this game. The guy kind of needs it because, I mean, look, he was a highly touted prospect for a reason, but 2-1 is the score. The Flyers get a goal by Joel Farabee, assisted by Scott Laughton and Travis Sanheim, and that's it. One of the best players on the Flyers last year, one of the best offensive contributors, playmakers on the squad in 2022-2023, gets scratched in a game against the worst team in the NHL, and they only score 1 goal in the process. We had already heard some rumblings that the Morgan Frost situation in Philadelphia was already pretty dire, how things didn't really look all too great, how there were teams like the Senators and the Canadiens that were getting involved in trade conversations, but it was never this bad. And in fact, it's made even worse when you read about how John Tortorella responded to the entire thing. They asked Torts during the interview, is it tough to take Morgan Frost out of the lineup? And he's like, nope, no, not tough. And it's a really simple response, but the tongue-in-cheekness combined with the context of how Frost has been not deployed on this team is really souring the Philadelphia Flyer fans that I'm seeing all over my timeline. You're seeing a bunch of conversations saying, hey, John Tortorella needs to back off. He's choosing the wrong hill to die on. Torts has this irrational dislike for Morgan Frost, and whatever reason there is that he's getting scratched or removed from the lineup, none of these reasons happen to be good. There are no real justifications that you could actually say to make it seem like, okay, yeah, it's better to play Ryan Poehling, it's better to play Scott Laughton, it's better to have any of these guys in the lineup rather than Morgan Frost, a 24-year-old young center who just broke out offensively last year as a playmaker on a Philadelphia Flyers squad that needed more offense. You scratched one of the top offensive guys in your team to score 1 goal against the San Jose Sharks, a Sharks team that allowed 20 goals in their past 2 games. How is that possible? How is that justifiable? How is that lived downable? That's not the right word at all. How is that the proper procedure to go with this hockey team? Like, I don't know what's more embarrassing, the fact that you gave the San Jose Sharks their first win on the season, or the fact that a good chunk of this fan base is turning against the head coach for scratching one of the best offensive guys from last year's team. Sure, he's got 0 points in 6 games played this year, but keeping him on the bench, keeping him in the press box, that's not going to get him back up and running, you know? Maybe you could talk about accountability, you could talk about the lesson or the message it's sending to the rest of the team, what kind of attitude and traits are valued on this squad, and what will get you into the lineup, but still. Optics-wise, for a guy that was already struggling to re-sign his extension, for a guy whose name was already tossed in trade rumors earlier this year, this is not looking good, and if I were a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was, I would probably bet the over on the amount of teams that Morgan Frost suits up for in 23-24. I'm going to say over 1.5. Is that how it works? I really don't know how the betting landscape ends up going down here, but either way, this entire situation with the Frost thing was so interesting that I wanted to take a look at some of these comments made by Flyers fans themselves. Here is the post made on the Flyers sub, and some of the comments regarding John Tortorella's decision. You've got Digging Through Sand saying that I don't know what it is that John Tortorella has against this kid, but it's obvious that Torts doesn't want to play him. Frost should no way be sitting. Get him in for Cates, Scott Lawton, or Ryan Poehling. John Tortorella has brought down the trade value of so many players, and he is benching youth in favor of gritty vets that will nowhere be near this team when it's competitive. He is the antithesis of a rebuilding coach, or a good modern coach either. The reply here says that his asset management is horrible. That's all we need to do this season and next. Asset manage and teach the young players. Instead, we get a player with probably okay skill ceiling, not developing and looking like unsellable trash thanks to John Tortorella. It's similar to what happened with Tony DeAngelo. I was never a fan of the overpriced... Oh, I'm not going to read that. But that doesn't mean we should throw him out the window for nothing. Instead, that's exactly what we did thanks to Tortorella. And so what I want to hear from you in the comments section below, if you're a fan of the Philadelphia Flyers, if you're a fan of any other team, if you're a fan of, let's just say, some of the teams that we had discussed earlier as to potential destinations for Frost, the Habs or the Senators, if you're a fan of any of these teams or you're just kind of watching, seeing what's going on, what is your opinion about this situation? The Flyers ended up scratching Frost, they lost against the Sharks, they gave the Sharks their first win, now all of a sudden that Thursday game, San Jose versus Edmonton, it's not all that important anymore because the Sharks already have a win. What are your thoughts on the way Morgan Frost is being handled? Do you see a trade coming soon? Do you think this former first-round pick is going to be on his way out of Philly? And if you're a Flyers fan, I want you to let me know what your opinions are on John Tortorella and his handling of this entire situation. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.